I'm here with Adam Levy. Welcome to Guitar Unlimited. We're going to talk about Adam's unique approach to the guitar. And we might play a little. And Adam and I have known each other for close to 30 years, maybe more. We both lived in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 90s, a very fertile time out there.
Yeah, it was.
And I want to get straight into what you do. And we've had a lot of talks because I interviewed you for Premier Guitar, and so actually I learned a lot about your background that I didn't know. And one of the things you do that is so special is you make singers happy. Your stock and trade, and not to pigeonhole you, but your stock and trade along with your own music is backing up singers. And obviously you're doing a good job because some of the greatest singers of our time have hired you, whether it's Norah Jones or Liz Wright or Tracy Chapman. Who am I leaving out?
I recorded a little bit with Michelle and cello. I recorded with Allen Toussaint shortly before he passed. Amos Lee.
Oh yeah, that's great. Well, the thing that I want to talk about is what it takes to be a great accompanist. I think we talk a lot about chord structures and technique and some somewhat advanced material in a lot of the podcasts I do, and I want to kind of strip down and go back to some of the basics. And I'd love to have you talk about the essentials for backing on a simple song, knowing that you are conversant across genres, so it's not like we're talking about backing up a rock singer or a folk singer or a jazz singer, usually something in between.
Right.
And what we're talking about is time, tone, and feel.
Yeah, that's it.
Weigh in.
Okay.
And feel free if you, for instance, like if you want to set me up with a really simple guitar part, and then show me what you do to it. Like, let's just say we're playing a song that's got 3 chords to it, and it's like a really basic song. Let's just also step inside your world and see how you think by just watching what you play.
Okay. I'm trying, of course, now I have to think of a song we can do.
Well, let's just because we'll play, then we'll talk. I was like, how about we just play People Get Ready?
Okay, sure.
All right. Why don't you set it up, and then I'm going to come in and take over with the chordal structure, and then you play the accompanist.
Okay.
So we're in a nightclub, and somebody's called this.
Okay. What key?
G.
G, great. This feels good?
Yeah.
2, 3, 4.
Keep doing that. I don't want to take over that part. You're doing it too well. I'll just play the melody. Okay, I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
But I think it's so special what you're doing in a very subtle way. And I'll tell you why I think it is, and tell me if I'm right. First of all, you're really playing totally bare bones rhythm. Very open, spare voicings. It's super solid. Feels great. And I don't know if you learned this from Bill Frisell or figured it out yourself, but you're getting a little vibrato with the neck bend. So it's got a very open, transparent quality to it. So were I singing, and as I'm playing the melody, I feel like there's just a really strong, open place for me to become involved.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to create. You know, I'm not trying to create something that draws attention to itself, but it has to feel really solid. And the openness, I mean, I'm playing very simple chords. I mean, not even chords. I'm thinking really about bass. And then because we're in G, I can kind of open up the guitar. You know, if we were in B flat, I might approach it differently. But then again, I might just use a capo and do the exact same thing. You know, I'm not opposed to capos.
Yes.
The neck thing, I definitely, you know, got from Bill, also from Ted Green. You know, did a little bit of that. Before I knew anything about effects pedals or anything, like in the time that we met in the 90s in the Bay Area, I had another ES335 and I had a deluxe reverb. And for a while I had no pedals, just because I had come more from a jazz background, and none of my heroes had pedals. That's all it was. Like, so I didn't own any, and I didn't know anything about it. So without pedals, and if you have just a guitar and a deluxe reverb, your only effects are reverb and then amp tremolo. But there's this other effect that you can get when you've got reverb, where if you move the neck a little bit, I'll exaggerate and then I'll go back to how I usually do it. So here's an exaggerated version. So, I mean, if you go too far, people will get seasick. But if you do just a little bit, it kind of adds this dimension. It creates, I think, a welcoming space, you know, without having something on the floor that needs a battery or another cable or whatever. You sort of have this effect for free, you know, just in the same way that you have effects for free by just different timbres that you can get from different right-hand techniques or how you use the pick. So before, I mean, now I do usually play with pedals, but before, there was many years when I didn't have any, and I just tried to see what can I get out of the guitar from my kind of bare knuckle style. And then, yeah, chord voicings are really simple. In this environment, I would think about bass first, because that's something people can tap their toes to.
I think that's really crucial. I just want to highlight that. Kind of seems obvious when you say it, but I think the tendency would be, let's say if I'd started, I might have alternately gone, which works, but there's much more, and I like the transparency of what you're doing, where it's, I mean, it's also more dramatic in a way. It's like, ooh, okay, anything could happen, instead of me filling out the part right away. Right. Am I right?
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way, but the sense that anything could happen, that's a good, if I'm doing that, that's a good thing, because if you do too much right out of the gate, sometimes it can kind of shut down the conversation, and somebody has to find a space to play in or sing in. And in working especially with singers, I want, there's a fine line. If you play too lightly, I've had singers be like, hey, I want to lean on something, so you have to give me something to lean on or lean into. So it can't be, so light that that there's nothing to lean on. Especially nowadays, playing with Liz Wright, she's a strong singer with a strong voice, and so the only time I think I would play a full-on strum kind of thing like that was if I had set up my guitar to have a lighter sound, a more transparent sound, which in the case of this guitar, if I'm in the middle position, it's a little less thick sounding than either of the pickups individually, so I might do that. Or if I'm playing an acoustic that's not a big jumbo guitar, but kind of then an open strum like that could be really great. And there are songs with Liz that I do play like that. We do a cover of a Gillian Welch song called I Made a Lover's Prayer. And when we do that song, I play it on acoustic guitar, and it is a strummer, but I find that I try to hold the pick in a kind of a feather-y way. So
show us that.
Yeah, I hope it'll translate on electric guitar. So I'm in the middle position right now, and I'm rolling back. I've got both pickups around 7.
Well, I think that's interesting too. Just thank you for noting that, because these guitars have a lot of range, and I hadn't thought about it when you began to play, but now I see where you started from, and I'm more just on the bass setting here, and it's a totally different sound.
Yeah, similar guitars, similar amps, really different sounds. So I'll play full strum, and then I'll try to feather it and see if I can actually do it. So here would be more of a chunky strum. Farther away so that it can move a little bit more.
Yeah, interesting. You've got this huge pick, by the way. And I've never seen anybody use those.
Yeah. This has been my pick for a little while. They're just kind of, I like that it's kind of big and dumb. And also there's 3 points that are the same. For a little while I was using a more like a regular shaped pick and playing on the shoulder because I like the softer edge of it. I never really need a precision. I mean, I'm not going for speed really ever, so I don't need that. And I just found that I kind of like the it's kind of comforting to have something bigger to hold on to, and there's no wrong side. It's 3 sides.
Well, let me ask you, in terms of tone production, whether you think about the angle of your hand.
I don't now. There might have been a time when I did, and I believe it's important, but it's not something I'm doing on a conscious level. So yes, it is something to think about, but I've never made really a study of what I'm doing or whatever. I'm just trying to get the best sound at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a question for you. So let's take a Norah Jones song. One of the simpler ones, obviously, and talk about the genesis of creating a part. Because that's a huge thing for us guitar players. If you're going to get hired by a singer, you got to create a part.
Right.
You're not going tell you what to do.
Right.
And is it possible to pull back the curtain a little bit? I guess what I'm imagining is there might be a song that when it was presented, there was like a lot of options. Like, I could play more, I could play like a lot less, and I could play up here, I could play down here, but here's what I came up with. And it worked.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put my pick down for a sec. One song that I think about in that way was Painter's song. I don't know if you know that song from the first record. Yeah. It wasn't like a big radio song, but it's a song people might know from the first record. And it's kind of ragtimey. Norah was already playing something a little ragtimey. On the record, I haven't listened to this in a while, but I think it starts out just with the guitar as an intro. So I play kind of like what I just played, but I also include some of the vocal melody as a suggestion of what you're about to hear. It's kind of a hint at it. And then when she starts singing, I take away that part and then I play just the lower part of it. So here would be something like the intro with the vocal melody. I haven't played this in a while, so let's see. So like that move on the E. It's not something that I would play when she's singing because it's really just going to step on it. So when she starts singing, I would basically imagine cutting the high E string off of my guitar because that's where her vocal range is going to be, and just live more on the lower strings. Which I want to come back to the song, but just even in the strummy bit, like when I'm playing like the Gillian Wells song, that's something I think about too, like not trying to strum through all 6 strings, but like even on just one chord, I'll dial it back again. Like listen, like here's the low part of a G chord. Here's the middle part. Like moving through inversions up the neck like we would practice to do, but I'm just getting in a full band setting. Like when I play with Liz, her band has a drum set and Fender bass and a Hammond organ. There's a lot of, and her voice is this big, sound. So finding ways, even in a full strum, to make it more transparent or a little smaller helps it kind of all hang together.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming back to Painter's song, so I'm just doing, basically staying off the high E string because that's where the vocal melody is. And then the bridge is really interesting because it does, the chords are really neat, and I came up with a part that is very small because I had to, and I'll show you what I mean. So those are the first 4 chords of the bridge. It goes like B9, and the bass walks up. And so I play this B9, which is just an inversion of this. But if I stay here, that's kind of a little bit nutty. But if I move here, it kind of, so it's just a slight, and then simple, drop voices. Yeah. And then the chords here, if you played them in full bloom, would be, there's a pickup, 1, 2, 3. But on the record, when I tried to, Norah's playing something like that on the piano. There's double bass, there's drums playing brushes. So I actually scaled it down to just, let's see, so it's G sharp. I have to think about this. Yeah, so the diminished chords, instead of playing these big things, I just do like, and then go up in sixth. Because if I tried to play any more than that, it just, even if I played all the right notes, it just was too much.
Right.
So sometimes I look for ways to make the guitar smaller, basically.
That's really well put. And what I'm noticing also is that your thumb, meaning the timekeeper for all this, is really strong in this and subtle. That's huge. What do you tell students when their time needs work?
Right.
Big subject.
It really is.
Top 3 things.
It really is. Because if your time is not happening, it's really hard, if not impossible, to play effectively with other people. If you just have a solo guitar gig where you're, set up in the corner of a coffee shop or whatever, being a little floaty, okay, sure.
Well, let me be a little more specific, because for sure that's a real trouble spot. But let's say their time is pretty good.
Oh, okay. Right, because that's a different thing. I've had students where they're just so far off that I've never ever told somebody, hey, I think you shouldn't play music. But occasionally I've met people that are so far away that I think, like, I don't know as a teacher how to help them, because it's almost like they can't hear what it is, and that's good. I wouldn't say stop playing music to anybody, but it's going to be really hard to play with other people. So you have to find something that you can do. Maybe you find a way to play that's just ambient. Like maybe you just find a way to play pads or something. A situation where you're not called on to be a timekeeper. You can just play sounds, and that's great. So if somebody's time is pretty good, but needs to be better, obviously play with a metronome. I mean, duh. But specifically, I would tell them, keep a metronome handy, which is easy now. When I first started teaching, people weren't carrying around a metronome app. So nobody's going to carry around their Franz metronome and plug it in wherever they go.
Right.
But have it on not just when you're practicing timekeeping, but just put it on when you're having a coffee, and see if you can do things both on the beat and also in relation to the beat. So whether that's picking up your cup or putting it down, tapping a foot, breathing, anything that you can do to connect. I feel like that's something that people miss, is like, okay, now time to eat my vegetables. I'll turn on the metronome and I'll practice my time for half an hour. But just have your metronome on throughout the day, if you can get away with it. Obviously, if you live with somebody, that might be a different thing. But so that it's just, you want to be aware of time all the time. And then inside of that, you want to be aware of the subdivisions of time. Not just the clicks of the metronome, but the stuff, the kind of invisible scaffolding that's holding those beats in equal measure.
So let me ask you about that. The song you just played, that's dun, 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 dun. If I'm playing that and it's just me and I want to have a good time, I'm hearing it like at the very least.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So even though you're not playing any of those subdivisions, that's what you're hearing.
Right.
So that yeah. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm hearing either something like that, like almost like a shaker pattern, you know, that could play those triplet feel, or maybe I'm hearing, you know, Billy Higgins play brushes or whatever it is. But I think that's an essential skill that as teachers we forget that if we have it doesn't mean that a student has it. To hear something that's not the thing that you're playing, but like you can have a rhythm or a chord or anything in your head that isn't the thing that you're playing, but that it informs it. I saw Gilad play a couple weeks ago. Nir Felder organized this benefit to raise money for musicians in Los Angeles who were affected by the fires. And I saw a really interesting thing that Gilad did when he got, everybody just played like 2 songs, but he got up with his band and there was this vamp, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was some sort of odd meter vamp. And he was going to improvise over it. And because it was really quiet in there and I was close, I could actually hear him singing the vamp while he was improvising. It was just like, doom, 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 something like that. And so when you think about singing and playing, people probably automatically think of George Benson, where you're like literally singing what you're playing. But I think it's if you're going to be a good accompanist and be a good team player, it's really important to be able to hear a rhythm in your head that is not the thing that you're playing, but that is like I said, like this kind of
scaffolding.
Yeah.
Well, if you take, for instance, a really slow tempo like 2, 3, 4. And I like to hear some of the syncopation too, because it makes it funky, and it's the only way to do that. Yeah. Because speeding up, it's almost impossible not to at a slow tempo if you don't work on that.
Yeah.
What are some of the songs you might point people to, or songs or parts, to embody more, to just get to work on their groove? Because so much of this is also being in your body, getting physical with the guitar. I think it can be a problem for jazz players who maybe are in school or are looking sort of up here for the music, you know, when some of the training really has to happen back down on earth.
Right.
Whether, like for me, I generally point people not so much to jazz players.
Okay.
To help ground them. What about you? At least at first.
Yeah. Trying to think of tracks that I've recommended to students and stuff. Well, there's one track, it doesn't actually have guitar on it, but it just feels so good. There's a song called Something You Got. It was been recorded by a bunch of people, but the recording that I really like is Alvin Robinson.
I've never heard of Alvin Robinson or that song, so that's a pretty deep cut.
Yeah. It was written by Chris Kenner, who also wrote Land of a Thousand Dances. I think he was from New Orleans and was writing kind of, you know, rhythm and blues songs. And so this song, Something You Got, Wilson Pickett also recorded it. And the pocket on it is just incredible. There's no guitar, but you could certainly put it on and play along with it on the guitar. There's a song called "You're Just Laughing Inside" by Al Anderson. He was the guitarist in NRBQ for a lot of years, and he made a solo record in the early 70s on the Vanguard label, and I think it's just called Al Anderson. And it's so spare. Again, like the rhythm section is just doing the most basic thing. Like it's not, it's very stripped down, and he plays these guitar fills. He's singing, and then he plays these little guitar fills, and the groove is just so there, even though it's not overt. So these are the kind of things that I like. If somebody, obviously, you could listen to any number of James Brown records if you wanted to get into playing a part that is really locked in.
Yes.
But honestly, that's not my world as much. So I would have to sit and think for a bit. But
how about some of the earlier Aretha Franklin records with your hero?
Oh yeah,
Cornell Dupree.
Yeah, exactly. So I love Aretha live at Fillmore.
Yeah.
The version of Bridge Over Troubled Waters,
Which, by the way, that he contributed an essay to my book Pity the Genius about that track.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is when you told me you were doing that and listened to it, there's almost no guitar there.
Right.
Which is kind of like interesting choice.
So on the other side of that, like let's talk about more overt guitar. Like I really like Big Bill Broonzy. That's somebody who really is keeping time on the guitar in a fantastic way. I really, shoot, give me a second because I'm trying to think of his name. Snooks Eaglin.
Oh yeah.
Snooks Eaglin, when I first heard him play, he was a guitarist from New Orleans, and when I first heard him play, it was playing electric guitar, on some records, or I actually saw him play live. But then I found these early recordings where he's playing acoustic, and I think he was just like at that time, I think just playing on the street or just playing saloons and stuff, and kind of just being a one-man, entertainer. So he knew all kinds of songs, as you would if that's what if what you were trying to do is entertain people. Same with Josh White. Like you can get Josh White records that like it runs the gamut, all different kinds of songs. And his time was really great too. But Snooks Eaglin as a solo performer, singing and playing the acoustic guitar, is just mind-blowingly funky. Just
interesting. Never knew that.
Outstanding. And he recorded a version of Malagueña on the guitar.
Wow.
It's called Funky Malagueña, and people need to hear that. So that would be something where if I wanted a student to work on their time, not in a spacious Cornell Dupree way where he's picking his moments, but like this is laying it down.
Yeah.
Those would be the kind of things that I would recommend. And I don't even really play that style of Charlie. Who's the guy that? Blind Blake. Charlie Hunter is super into Blind Blake, and he can play all that stuff, exactly as it is. I've never done a deep dive on that style.
Right. That's a whole nother way of playing the guitar. It really is.
Right. But I listen to it, and I think in my way, I'm trying sometimes to do something like that without it being super overt. Chet Atkins is another way to do that.
Yeah.
Jerry Reed, very funky guitar player, also great timekeeper. Those are guys that I've listened to more probably Chet and Jerry than I ever have to blues, ragtimey blues players.
Yeah. I'm thinking of also an early influence who's an incredible at accompanying himself, Michael Gregory Jackson. The way that he plays time, if you see him solo, it's just, as you know, it's hard to sing and play.
Yes.
And his feel on the guitar when he's singing is spectacular. I mean, it also when he's not singing. And then Isaiah Sharkey, a more contemporary person playing with his own music and with John Mayer, you know, he came to our camp and did essentially a groove workshop, and it was so deep, because we just don't, I don't talk about it enough. That's why I'm glad we're in that zone.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between learning how to swing, even though they're all related, and learning how to accompany a singer or learning how to play a funk part. They're all important, but very different skill sets.
Yeah. What you just said reminded me of two things, and when you said about John Mayer, I saw David Ryan Harris play a solo set. He also toured quite a bit with John Mayer. Like 7 or 8 or 9 years ago in Los Angeles, I was on a bill that had multiple acts, and one of the things was him just singing and playing electric guitar. I think he was playing a ES-330, and it really just felt like the whole band was there. Not in a Charlie Hunter way where it's like, here's the bass part, like not like that, but just in the way that he played electric guitar. It was so mesmerizing.
Yes.
You know, really incredible.
Yeah.
1, 2.
I'm channeling my inner Adam Levy to the grave. playing with a singer, I wouldn't have done anything like that. I would have just kept it really simple. But beautiful thing about a song like that is the infinite ways in which it can be interpreted. And it's so nice doing that with you, because I feel like we could have played for like 12 minutes and maybe not even gotten people bored.
Yeah, yeah.
The high-low thing on guitar is such a beautiful thing. As anybody who knows me knows, that I favor guitar duos as perhaps the greatest transport system for music. You know, there's an art to playing two guitars, and I think you're really great at it. You've done a lot of it. I feel like one of the great things that we can do is sort of take a microscope and get really simple with just a couple of notes, and then all of a sudden these huge chords, like the chord we ended on was like a 12-note chord or a 10-note chord.
Yeah.
But also, you know, guitar, just play a rhythm part, and I'll go back to the song. I can just be going, so 1, 2, 3 from the beginning.
Yeah.
So it can go from like to
people can't see this because it's out of the frame, but as I look at Joel, over his shoulder is this poster of Danny Gatton looking badass. So he's kind of like looking at me like, is that all you got, son?
I live with that every day.
So that's why I'm going for, you know, relatively for me, like reaching for stuff, because I have Danny looking down at me.
Well, on this side is Coleman Hawkins and Charlie Mingus, so you know,
man.
that's even worse maybe. But you know, also as guitar players, one of the things that we're sort of, well, we just grew up this way, and I don't know, not everybody's like this, but so many of my favorite guitar players we can enjoy because of the enormous history of the guitar going between like a ragtime swing or a blues thing or a country thing. That's where the guitar lives, you know. So that's a great, actually it was a great tune choice for that reason, because if we were to try to play Donna Lee, it'd be a whole different experience.
Yeah. Right.
Or something more locked in, you know, like a rock song with parts and stuff. But
right.
I feel like where you live, and I guess I feel similarly, is that in-between space that we label as Americana, but really what it is it's a rich tapestry, or let me use a different analogy. It's like there's this river of American music, and there's all these streams that feed it, and they come from the African American history and the Anglo-American history, and it comes from the South, from Cuba and Mexico, and et cetera, et cetera. It's the Acadian music influencing New Orleans, and to be able to dip into that well in in the moment is just, to me, the greatest satisfaction.
Yes.
Because that's what the guitar is, man. The guitar is America in so many ways, at its best,
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah, that's really true. Never thought of it that way, but yeah, the guitar is really a great American instrument. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your jazz playing,
Mm-hmm.
and then get the focus a little bit more towards that, because you're a great jazz player. I don't know if people get to see you do that quite as much. I know you're doing a lot of teaching in that vein.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us a little bit about, for instance, I don't know that I've heard you do it in decades, but I'm sure you play solo
Mm-hmm.
really well. But bust out a chorus of a jazz tune and just pull back the curtain and just improvise a little.
Okay. And I don't know if I should keep going, but that's easy to love.
It sounded so much like the A section to Body and Soul. I was like, why is he playing this in like half step down?
Yeah, right. I don't know. This is a tune I've been
Beautiful.
thinking about lately.
I don't know that song, but I love the way that the time is so solid in there, and yet you're leaving. There's just so much syncopation and space you're leaving. You're like you're talking to yourself.
Yeah. Again, I feel like that. You know, when we were talking about timekeeping before, the idea was maybe you would have the subdivision in your head while you're playing, then that kind of holds the space. But also, you could think about the melody and be commenting on the melody without playing the melody.
Mm-hmm.
You could, I don't know, you could have Ray Brown in your head and play as if, you know, even though, you know, I'm not trying to play all of that stuff, but sometimes I do play with other stuff going on in my head. And the spacious thing, I think of Bill Evans when he plays solo, does a lot of push and pull with the time, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful to me. And drummers, when I hear drummers take solos, the way that they cross bar lines and, you know, they don't spoon feed you the downbeat all the time. And that's so beautiful to me. I love either, you know, trading courses with drummers or just listening to drummers play a solo over a tune like that, you know?
you're reminding me that, excuse me, way back in the, I'm going to have to say it was the late 90s, mid 90s, you did a deep dive into Bill Evans music. I forget how I knew that. I went to see you play a show with, you did a bunch of Bill Evans, and that inspired me, and I went back and I worked on Bill Evans tunes for years, really, and it really opened up my writing. That's the main thing it did for me, because his harmony is so deep. I learned so much about how to write a song, and I like that kind of exotic harmony. So thanks for that.
Sure.
Can you remember, can I remember Turn Out the Stars? Could we play a chorus of that? It's so complicated.
Walk me through it.
Oh my God, we'll be here for 10 minutes just getting through one chorus.
Okay.
Do you remember? Let's choose something. Yeah, should we choose something easier?
Yeah, I wish I had that at my fingertips, but
well, to be fair, I was working on it fairly recently, but even so, it's almost impossible to remember.
Yeah.
But I was thinking we could play a jazz tune.
Sure.
Could we play? Let's just play something simple like maybe Alone Together. And let's dialogue. That's something you're so good at. You're a dialoguer. I love that about your playing. You're always listening and not asserting yourself in the space. It's like open.
All right. Well, let's see. In D minor, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to play the melody, or do you want
Let me just make sure I'm in tune. That was for you, Danny. Nice. That was radical.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful, Joel. Wow.
Let's play, while the camera's running, let's play my tune that you recorded with me. Listen to Luther Sing, which, by the way, is dedicated to Luther Vandross. Because people probably don't know that necessarily from the title.
No, I didn't realize that until you told me at camp. Somehow I was thinking, even though it doesn't sound anything like Luther Perkins, I just was somehow thinking, okay, well, you know.
We're in a Telecaster.
Right, you know.
Well, basically I was trying to write a melody that he might sing in my own way. So there's a little more harmony than you might find in one of his songs. But his voice is just so beautiful. It just makes me think lyrically. That's where this came from.
Before we play it, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you and I met, I wasn't aware that you sang, right? I thought of you as a player first and foremost. And back then, I didn't sing. I wasn't like keeping it a secret. I just didn't sing at all, ever.
Right.
I still remember being in a car with a girlfriend around that time in the early 90s. And I was singing along with something on the radio, and she looked at me, she's like, "Oh, I never knew you couldn't sing."
Wow, that relationship must not have lasted long.
Didn't last too, but I think I got out of the car right there. So, but anyway, what I was going to say is nowadays, you know, I sing, I've recorded as many vocal records as I have, you know, guitar records.
Oh, I didn't know.
You know, and I know, you know, you've written songs with words and you sing. Do you Did you always, here's what I wanted to find out. Did you always sing?
I did.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I was kind of a decent singer in grade school. I could keep pitch and did well in, in the choirs and stuff. And then I loved rock music at the time and the Beatles and all that. And so I was singing that stuff early on, but never thrilled with my voice. But I wanted to be a singer-songwriter. I never aspired to be a jazz musician when I was younger. And I sort of tried to play both ends of it for a long time, and I guess I sort of still do. But at a certain point, it occurred to me that there was a expiration date to aspiring to be the singer-songwriter as I imagined it, and there was no expiration date to jazz. That I could do it into my 80s, and it was infinite.
Yeah.
And it didn't rely so much upon the whims of the marketplace.
Yeah.
That it was a deep intellectual pursuit as well.
Right.
But I don't know if when I sit down to listen to music, I'm probably just as inclined to listen to singers as I am to instrumentalists, and I feel that it's at the heart of how I play, because I'm maybe like you, if I might say so. I'm not like a chops player.
Yeah.
I can't really play fast, and I always hear melody. I try to always hear melody, because it's like that's what I can do. That's where I can offer something.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna knock you out of the park with my counterpoint and voice leading in my guitar playing or my speed, but I can play melody.
Yeah, it's so apparent. And you were asking me earlier about, what do you do when somebody doesn't have a strong rhythm, or when maybe they have a little bit of rhythm but they're not totally there. But that's the other, I think, $1 million thing is like, students ask me, well, okay, now I've got all the scale, I've got all the material, how do I play melodies?
Oh my God.
And
I don't think anybody's ever asked me that.
Oh,
that's like the magic question.
Yeah. So for you, you've been thinking about melodies all along. Like that's always been a part of your thing.
Well, the entire Free Country project uses those melodies as a scaffold to explore in, and that's pretty much Bill Frisell's entire career.
Yeah.
As simplified as it makes it sound, talking with him, that's my impression. So I do think there are people in this world who can write music really well, but they don't hear melody.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Right.
But in my discussion with Pat Metheny, in that wonderful interview I was able to do with him, this was something he really nailed home. He said, melody is the X factor. Nobody can explain it. And a melody could be anything.
Right.
Whether he said this or not, what I think he meant is I'm always thinking melodically. And if you listen to Pat Metheny, that truly, above anything else in his genius, is his real calling card.
Yeah.
That's why we love him. He can't help it seems like.
Right. Yes.
And that's not true of all jazz players by any means.
No.
In fact, probably many it isn't true. They can do so much.
Right.
Talk to me about singing and melody. Like, did you become a better guitar player when you started singing?
I think so. So, I mean, people, they may not know.
Tell us about, okay, so you've got records with Rich Hinman, who's a pedal steel player. You've got records of your own that are trios.
Right.
You've got a lot of vocal records where you're just, like with a trio or quartet.
Different things. I made a duo record with Jay Bellerose that's just vocal, guitar, and drums.
What? I didn't know that. Excuse me. That takes some nerve. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Boy, talk about stripped down.
Yeah.
I
And
gotta
we
hear
recorded, very set up, very close together, I did a record where it's just me singing and playing acoustic guitar, and then some other stuff was there's some strings on a song, and some, very subtle overdubs that Mark Orton produced. That's a record called The Heart Collector.
Well, that's really nervy too to me. Like, I don't have the guts to just get out there with just a guitar.
Yeah.
It's too hard.
It's too
vulnerable.
like
No.
Well, I mean, and part of that came out of when I first started. So I started writing songs maybe around 2003 or 4. I was on the road with Norah Jones, and I was just in song world. Like everybody in the band was writing songs. I started writing songs. Before that, I never bothered to write because I didn't think I could sing, and nobody was asking me to write songs. So then I started because of basically that. I was hanging out with a bunch of songs. I was on a bus with a bunch of songwriters, so I started writing. And then I started singing because Norah did record a couple of things that I wrote, but really, I wanted to have an outlet for my songs, so I started singing just to have an outlet. And the first year or two, it wasn't very good, but I finally found my voice, literally found my voice. And I feel like this...
Like how? Just by doing it, or
Yeah.
did you get with a teacher?
No.
Or you just
I
like,
did
okay,
a lot
this
of
feels right.
solo acoustic shows. I played, like Living Room, Rockwood, etc. I drank a lot of whiskey and just kept trying until it came to me, but not through it. I wish in retrospect, I should have got a vocal.
I've taken a lot of voice lessons because I never liked my voice that much, and I still don't. Do you have that
Of course.
problem?
Yeah.
I mean, I love the way people sing on my records.
Yeah.
And that's why my more recent records, I had other singers do almost all of it. And it just takes so much pressure off.
It does.
But
But
sometimes you gotta sing your own song.
that's how I started. And then I just got to where felt like I could do it, and now I'm very comfortable. So, the boldness of making a solo acoustic record partly came, making a duo record with Jay, is at that point I had done a lot of gigs just by myself, because you can tour that way. It's, it's economical,
Yeah.
I sang a lot in the subway, for a while. I mean, this is, 15, 16 years ago. But anyway, I found that being a singer myself made me much, much more aware. Like, I had to embody melody. And I think that was, for me, like a big revolution in my guitar playing, becoming more melodic, was when I was playing with Norah in the beginning. I wasn't a singer, and so part of accompanying a singer is understanding that space. And I feel like I understand it a lot more now that I am a singer. And hopefully I play melodically. I don't know. Let's play your song, and
You do play melodically, but I think it was really not a great surprise to me to hear that you were starting to sing way back when. I was like, yeah, this totally makes sense. This guy lives in this world. And someday I'm gonna write a piece or something, or maybe a magazine will ask me to do it. I'll just do it on Substack to write about the jazz musicians who also write songs. And they're actually more than one would think.
Yes.
But it's humbling because it's really hard to do more than one thing. It's very hard to do two things. It's almost impossible to do three things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the Vince Gills of this world are few and far between. Incredible singer, incredible songwriter, incredible guitar player. It's not many of those. Prince.
Yeah.
You could probably be hard put to come up with more than 7 or 8 without really taking a minute.
Yeah.
Well, if you'll hand me that music stand, because I haven't played this song since we played it this summer, and so this is. Let me try to.
Let's see.
How about we do this so we can? I'll get a little
great.
closer and we can still see the guitars and stuff. So this is a song that Adam and I recorded on a record that's coming out in April. That's called Guitar Talk Volume 2. And what I did was I called some of my very favorite guitar players, kind of heroes of mine, I would say, in all different ways. And let me write something that speaks to how I see them. Play to their strengths, even though I think everybody on the record can do so many different things. But this is something that I just hoped would allow you to be fully you and us to be us together. And I'm really proud of the way this came out on the record. I'm like, man, that is like, we're really playing together. 1, 2, 3.
What a great
Thank
song.
you.
What a great song.
Thank you. You know, playing with you reminds me of a saying of Miles Davis, which is a great place to end, I think. One of the pieces of advice he would dole out is play every other phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Really deep. Like, I can hear, like, kind of you help bring that out in me. Just like, wait a minute, what if I don't play here?
Yeah.
Something interesting happens.
That's dialoguing.
Yeah.
As you said.
Yeah. Adam Levy, thanks for coming over to my place.
Yeah, Joel.
So much fun.
What a pleasure.
Keep up the great work.